The wind howled across the icy plains of Valira, carrying a cold so sharp that even the thick scales of dragons could not keep it away. The orphanage sat on a high cliff, overlooking the frozen valley below. Its walls were tall and made of metal and stone, but no matter how strong they were, they could not hold warmth inside. The dragons who lived there huddled together in small groups, their breaths forming clouds of frost in the air. No one laughed. No one played. The silence was heavy, almost as if the building itself mourned. Inside, young dragons of every color and shape moved slowly, their wings drooping, their tails dragging. Some tried to breathe small fires to warm themselves, but the cold swallowed every spark. A tiny dragon with blue scales and oversized wings sat alone in the corner, shivering. His name was Zarin, and he had been at the orphanage for as long as he could remember. He had never known warmth that wasn't fleeting, never felt the comfort of a fire that lasted more than a few minutes. He curled into a ball, trying to make himself small, hoping the cold would not notice him. The elder dragon, Thaler, moved through the halls with quiet steps. His scales were gray with age and his eyes were tired but sharp. He had watched generation after generation of dragons grow up in the cold. He knew how it affected them. Dragons became weak, slow, and afraid. Thaler had tried many ways to make the halls warmer. He had gathered crystals that stored energy, tried to teach the young ones to breathe steady warmth, and even asked for help from neighboring planets. Nothing worked. The cold was relentless. On this day, as the sky above the orphanage was painted with pale purple clouds, a small shuttle landed on the frozen landing pad. The dragons watched from the windows, curious but cautious. They had seen humans before but never one who came to help. The shuttle door opened and a human stepped out. He wore a thick coat and carried a small bag full of tools. His face was calm and his eyes were filled with curiosity. His name was Kale. Kale walked carefully toward the orphanage. He noticed the frost covering the walls and the stillness of the air inside. When he entered, he saw dragons sitting silently, their eyes wide as they studied him. Zarin peeked from behind a pillar, unsure if he should hide or approach. Kale knelt down slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Hello," he said softly. "I'm Kale. I am here to help." The dragons did not respond at first. They had heard promises before, but none had ever been kept. Thaler stepped forward. "You are a human," he said. "Why are you here? No one can fix this cold." His voice was deep, but there was no anger, only tiredness. Kale smiled gently. "I don't know if I can fix everything," he admitted, "but I can try. I want to make this place warm for you. Not just with fire but with something that lasts." He opened his bag and began taking out small devices, wires and crystals. The dragons leaned closer, their curiosity slowly overcoming their fear. Kale walked through the halls, examining the energy systems already in place. He tapped on the walls and listened to the hum of the machines. "You generate energy," he said quietly. "But it doesn't stay. It leaks and the cold always wins. I think I can help you control it." He drew a diagram on a piece of paper, showing how he planned to connect the dragon's energy to a device that could hold it and spread it gently through the orphanage. Lyra, a young dragon with violet scales and long, delicate wings, watched him with suspicion. She had seen humans promise much and deliver little. "How do we know this will not hurt us?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Kale looked into her eyes. "I will not hurt you," he said sincerely. "I need your help, but only if you trust me. We will do this together." The dragons murmured among themselves. Some were hopeful, some wary. Zarin stepped forward, his small body trembling. "I want to try," he said. Kale nodded. "Good. You all can help in small ways. Even moving crystals or holding wires will help. Together we can make a difference." Days passed. Kale worked tirelessly. He adjusted circuits, polished crystals, and connected pipes that ran through the walls. The dragons watched him, learning slowly how energy could be guided. They tried small experiments, breathing gentle flames into tiny collectors, seeing how the heat moved through the system. Slowly the orphanage began to feel slightly warmer. It was not much, but it was enough to make the young dragons look at each other with surprise. Zarin laughed for the first time in years when a small burst of warmth spread through the room. Lyra's wings trembled, not from cold but from excitement. Even Thaler allowed himself a small smile, watching the dragons discover the feeling of comfort. Kale wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at the gathered dragons. "We are only starting," he said. "The warmth will grow. You will feel it everywhere, not just here." As night fell over the frozen valley, the orphanage glowed faintly. Not from fire, not from light, but from something new, hope. Dragons curled in their nests, feeling the gentle energy flow around them. Zarin felt a warmth he had never known. He fell asleep, dreaming of days when the cold would no longer rule his life. Kale sat in the main hall, looking at the dragons resting peacefully. He knew it would take time and there would be challenges, but the first step had been taken. The frozen orphanage had felt something new today. Something more than heat. Something that could change everything. And outside, the wind still blew over the icy plains, but inside, the halls were no longer just cold. Inside there was hope. The morning light reflected off the icy walls of the orphanage, making the halls sparkle like crystals. Dragons stirred in their nest, stretching their wings and yawning. For the first time in a long while, they felt something different. A faint, steady warmth that lingered even as the cold wind blew outside. Zarin and Lyra were the first to leave their nests, moving carefully through the hall to see Kale, who was already busy at work near the main energy panel. Kale greeted them with a small smile. "Good morning," he said. "Are you ready to help today?" Zarin nodded eagerly and Lyra hesitated, still unsure but curious. Kale held up a small device that looked like a crystal with wires attached. "This is the start," he said. "I have an idea that can change this orphanage. Not just for a little while but forever. If you help me, I think we can make it warm everywhere all the time." The dragons gathered closer, their eyes wide. Lyra's violet wings twitched nervously. "How can you do that?" she asked. "We are dragons. We breathe fire. We have energy. But this is bigger than us. It has always been bigger than us. And humans do not understand our power." Kale shook his head. "I don't need to understand everything," he said. "I just need to work with you. I need to listen, watch, and try. That is all. I have seen your energy. You can make fire and warmth, but it is scattered. My device can catch it, hold it, and send it where it is needed. You will not lose anything. You will only gain." Thaler the elder dragon moved forward. His gray scales shimmered in the light. "You speak with confidence," he said slowly. "But many have tried to help us before. None succeeded. Why should we believe you?" Kale looked at him directly. "Because I will not give up," he said firmly. "Because I will not leave until every young dragon here feels the comfort they deserve. And because I will do it together with you, not for you." The dragons murmured among themselves. Some were doubtful. Some, like Zarin, were hopeful. Lyra studied Kale carefully. Finally she stepped forward. "We will try," she said softly. "But only to see if your idea works. Do not waste our time." Kale smiled. "That is all I ask." He set to work, laying out the parts of his device across the floor. Crystals, wires, pipes, and small energy collectors were arranged carefully. He showed the dragons how each piece worked. "These crystals hold energy," he explained. "They catch the warmth you breathe out. These pipes will carry it to every corner of the orphanage. And these small converters will make sure the energy stays gentle and safe." Zarin's eyes widened. "Can we help?" he asked. Kale handed him a small crystal. "Hold it carefully," he said. "Breathe on it gently. Feel how your warmth moves into it. That is how we start." The little dragon followed the instructions. At first nothing happened. Then a faint glow appeared inside the crystal. Zarin gasped. It was the first time he had seen his fire do more than burn the air around him. Lyra tried next and the crystal shone brighter, humming softly. Kale clapped his hands. "See? You are helping already. Imagine if we connect all of these together. Imagine if the entire orphanage could feel this warmth." Thaler watched silently, his eyes narrowing. He had seen many experiments fail, but this was different. The dragons themselves were part of the process. They were not passive. They were learning, feeling, and giving. He allowed himself a small smile. For the next days, Kale worked with the dragons. They learned to control the flow of their energy, to breathe steadily into the crystals without overheating them. Lyra, who had been cautious at first, became skilled at guiding her fire. Zarin laughed whenever a crystal glowed unexpectedly, and soon other young dragons joined, curious and eager. Kale drew diagrams showing how energy could move from room to room. "See this line?" he said. "This pipe carries warmth from one crystal to another. This valve controls the flow. Together they create a network. The more energy you give, the warmer it gets." The dragons were amazed. They had never thought of their power in this way. They had always used fire to hunt, to play, or to protect themselves. Now they could use it to create comfort and safety. Some even experimented with small bursts, learning to control their strength without fear. The orphanage, which had been silent and cold, slowly became alive with soft glows and gentle warmth. One evening, Kale sat with Zarin and Lyra in the main hall. You have done well today, he said. Tomorrow we will try to connect all the crystals. Then the warmth will reach every corner of the orphanage. Not just here in the main hall, but in every nest, every corridor, every room. Zaren's eyes shone with excitement. Do you think it will work? He asked. Kale nodded. I believe it will. But the most important thing is that you all believe too. This is your energy. You are the ones making this orphanage warm. I am only guiding it. Lyra looked thoughtful. It feels strange, she admitted. I have never felt so powerful yet safe. It is not just fire. It is something else. Something that grows inside me. Kale smiled. That is hope, he said softly. And warmth is only the first step. Together we will make this place more than just a home. We will make it a place where dragons can be strong, happy, and safe. That night, the dragons curled in their nests, feeling the gentle hum of energy moving through the halls. The warmth was not yet perfect, but it was enough to make them dream of a future they had never imagined. Zaren imagined flying through sunlit skies, Lyra imagined playful races with her friends, and even Thaler allowed himself to remember what it was like to feel completely safe. Outside, the wind still howled across the icy plains, but inside, the orphanage was alive with a new sound, soft whispers of excitement, gentle laughter, and the quiet pulse of hope. Kale looked around at the dragons and smiled. He knew the road ahead would have challenges, but he also knew one thing. An idea had been planted and it was already sparking hope. For the first time in many years, the frozen orphanage felt like it could change. The sun rose slowly over Valira, casting pale golden light across the icy walls of the orphanage. Inside, the halls were no longer completely silent. Soft humming sounds filled the air as the crystals, pipes, and energy collectors Kale had installed glimmered faintly. Dragons stirred in their nests, eyes wide with curiosity and excitement. For the first time in years they could feel something more than the biting cold, something warm, gentle, and alive. Kale stood in the center of the main hall, checking the final connections of his device. He had spent weeks adjusting crystals, arranging pipes, and carefully guiding dragons to breathe their energy into the system. Today he would activate the network fully. The moment was tense. The young dragons gathered around him, their wings twitching nervously. Lyra, standing beside Zaren, took a deep breath. Are you sure it is safe? She asked quietly. Kale nodded. I'm sure. But you have to trust me, and yourselves. This is your energy. You will feel it, control it, and it will not hurt you. Only warmth, comfort, and strength. Zaren's small claws gripped the edge of the nearest crystal. I am ready, he whispered. He looked at Lyra, who gave a small nod, her violet wings trembling. The elder Thaler moved closer, his eyes sharp and careful, but there was a hint of anticipation in them as well. Kale pressed the activation button on the main control panel. For a moment nothing happened. The dragons held their breath. Then a faint golden glow began to spread through the first crystal. It pulsed gently like the beat of a heart. The warmth traveled along the pipes, humming softly as it moved through the halls. Zaren felt it first. A gentle tingle spread through his small body, reaching his wings, his tail, and his claws. He gasped and looked around. The warmth was real. It was not fire, not the harsh heat he had sometimes created with his breath. It was soft, alive, comforting. He stepped closer to another crystal, touching it with his nose, and felt the glow grow stronger. Lyra moved carefully next, placing her claws on a crystal. The energy flowed into her, and her violet scales shimmered in the golden light. She felt a strange, wonderful sensation, a combination of her own power and something new, something that made her feel safe. A small smile spread across her face. It works, she whispered, almost in disbelief. The warmth spread through the orphanage quickly. Dragons of all sizes felt it, their bodies relaxing, their wings lifting slightly for the first time in years. The main hall, which had been cold and empty, glowed with a soft light. The frost on the walls melted slowly, revealing smooth metal and stone beneath. For the first time the orphanage felt alive. Thaler watched the young dragons carefully, then allowed a small smile. He could feel the energy as it passed through the halls, gentle but strong. It is different, he said quietly. I have never felt this before. Not even when we tried the old methods. It is hope. Zaren laughed softly, a sound that echoed through the hall like music. He ran to the nearest pipe and touched it, sending a small burst of energy into the system. The glow increased slightly, pulsing warmly through the orphanage. Lyra followed, guiding her energy carefully into the network. Other dragons, curious and excited, joined in. The golden light moved faster now, spreading into every corridor, Every room, every nest. Kale watched, his heart swelling. He had known this day would come, but seeing the dragons react was more than he had imagined. They were not just passive participants. They were learning, controlling, and creating the warmth themselves. He knelt beside Zarin and said, "See? You did this. All of you did. This orphanage is yours and now it has warmth." Zarin beamed. "It feels amazing. I have never felt like this before," he said. His tiny wings flapped excitedly as he moved through the hall, feeling the glow follow him wherever he went. Lyra's wings shimmered as well, and she breathed gently into a nearby crystal, watching the golden light flow through the pipes. Even the shy dragons who had hidden in corners for years stepped forward. They touched the crystals, letting their energy flow into the system, and felt the gentle warmth spread over their scales. A small dragon with green and yellow stripes let out a soft chirp of delight. The orphanage, which had once been cold, dark, and silent, was now filled with light, warmth, and life. Kale moved through the hall, checking connections and adjusting small valves. The energy flowed smoothly, guided by the dragons themselves. He noticed Lyra and Zarin coordinating their efforts, creating small waves of warmth that moved like gentle currents through the halls. Thaler observed quietly, realizing that the young dragons had learned to control their power in a way he had never thought possible. By evening, the orphanage was glowing like a golden jewel against the dark icy plains outside. Dragons curled in their nests, feeling the gentle energy surround them like a protective blanket. Zarin lay in his nest, watching the soft light move along the walls, and felt a sense of peace he had never known. Lyra perched beside him, smiling quietly. "It is beautiful," she said softly. We did it." Kale sat in the main hall, exhausted but happy. He watched as the dragons explored the warmth, discovering new ways to use their energy. For the first time he felt that the orphanage was not just a place of survival but a place of life. The dragons had found hope. They had found warmth. And they had found it together. Outside, the wind still blew across the frozen plains, carrying ice and snow, but inside, the orphanage shone with golden light. The cold no longer ruled here. Dragons could sleep safely, play freely, and grow strong. The first glow had awakened something deeper than heat. It had awakened the hearts of every dragon in the orphanage. Kale looked around one last time that night. The young dragons were already dreaming peacefully, the elder Thaler resting comfortably for the first time in decades. He knew there would be challenges ahead, but tonight the orphanage was alive. The first glow had shown them what was possible. And in that light, Zarin, Lyra, and the other dragons dreamed of a future filled with warmth, laughter, and hope. The morning sun reflected off the icy walls outside, but inside the orphanage, golden warmth filled the halls. The dragons moved through the rooms with cautious excitement, feeling the energy flow beneath their claws and through their wings. Zarin darted from one crystal to another, sending small pulses of warmth into the network, while Lyra guided her energy carefully, ensuring nothing surged too strongly. Kale watched them closely, noting their progress with pride and a touch of concern. "Good morning," Kale said, his voice calm. "Today we will practice controlling the energy more carefully. It is powerful, but it can also be unpredictable if not handled right." The young dragons listened attentively. They had felt the joy of warmth for the first time, but they did not fully understand how delicate the system was. Zarin tilted his head. "Unpredictable? What do you mean?" Kale pointed to one of the smaller pipes running along the wall. "Sometimes, if too much energy flows at once, it can burst out too strongly. Not in a dangerous way, but it can surprise you. It might make the room too hot or too bright for a few moments. We need to learn control." Lyra frowned. "I don't like surprises," she admitted. "They make me nervous." Kale smiled gently. "I know. That is why we will practice slowly. You will learn to guide your own energy, to balance it, and to help the system work smoothly. You will all feel safer once you understand it." The dragons began their exercises. Each placed a claw on a crystal and focused, breathing gently into the system. Zarin accidentally sent too strong a pulse into one crystal, and a small wave of warmth spread quickly through the hall. He yelped as it tickled his wings. Lyra quickly guided her energy to balance it, and Kale adjusted a valve to steady the flow. "See," Kale said. "Mistakes happen. The important thing is to fix them calmly. Do not panic. Use your power with care." The dragons practiced for hours, learning to control the strength and flow of their energy. Zarin laughed whenever his pulse caused a small ripple in the light, and Lyra began to enjoy the challenge of guiding the waves perfectly. Even the shy dragons who had barely moved in weeks started to step forward, touching crystals and feeling the warmth flow through them. As the day went on, Kale introduced another lesson. Energy can also be stored, he explained. If we gather it carefully, we can keep it for later, even at night. That way, the warmth never goes away and the orphanage will always be comfortable. He showed the dragons how to channel their energy into special crystals designed to hold it for long periods. Zarin tried first, and the crystal glowed steadily, holding the energy like a small sun. Lyra followed, her wings trembling with concentration, and soon all the dragons were working together, creating a network of stored warmth. Thaler observed quietly from a distance. He had never seen dragons cooperate like this. Normally, young dragons focused only on themselves, but now they were thinking of the orphanage as a whole, guiding their power to help everyone. The elder dragon felt a deep sense of pride. Perhaps humans could teach dragons something new, something beyond what he had imagined. Still, there were challenges. Occasionally, a crystal would overheat, or a pipe would vibrate too strongly. Dragons would jump back, startled, and Kale would calm them, showing how to adjust their energy and prevent surges. Lyra learned to anticipate these moments, guiding other dragons and helping them remain calm. Zarin, though mischievous, began to focus more carefully, understanding the responsibility that came with his power. One afternoon, a sudden surge of energy flowed through the main hall. The golden light pulsed rapidly, brightening the room and causing a warm breeze to swirl around. Several young dragons squeaked and stepped back, unsure of what to do. Kale quickly moved to the main control panel, adjusting valves and guiding the flow. Lyra joined him, placing her claws on a nearby crystal to stabilize the surge. "Remember," Kale said calmly, "energy is like water. It can move fast, but it follows the path you guide it. Stay calm and it will listen." Gradually, the hall returned to a steady, gentle glow. The dragons breathed in relief. Zarin looked at Kale with wide eyes. "I didn't think we could fix that," he said. Kale smiled. "You fixed it. I just guided it. You all are learning to control your own energy. That is what matters." Over the next few days, the dragons continued their training. They experimented with small bursts, gentle waves, and stored energy. They learned to sense when the system needed more warmth and when it needed to slow down. The orphanage became not just a place to live, but a place to practice, explore, and grow. The warmth was no longer just a gift, it was something they could create themselves. Zarin and Lyra became leaders among the young dragons. Zarin used his enthusiasm to encourage others, while Lyra's careful guidance kept everyone balanced. Together they taught the shy dragons, showing them that mistakes were okay and that teamwork made the system stronger. Even Thaler occasionally joined in, breathing steady warmth into the network and watching with quiet satisfaction as the young dragons guided the energy around him. By the end of the week, the orphanage had changed in ways that no one could have imagined. The halls glowed softly, the nests were warm and comfortable, and the dragons moved with confidence and joy. They had learned to control their power, to work together, and to face challenges calmly. Kale looked at them, feeling a deep sense of pride. The warmth they shared was more than just heat, it was trust, cooperation, and hope. That night, the dragons curled in their nests, feeling the gentle hum of energy flow around them. Zarin whispered to Lyra, "I think we can really do this. We can keep the orphanage warm forever." Lyra smiled, her wings wrapped around herself. "We will," she said softly. "We just have to keep learning and working together." Kale sat nearby, watching the golden light pulse through the halls. He knew that challenges would continue, but he also knew that the dragons were ready. They had learned the most important lesson of all, that strength was not just in their fire, but in their care, their focus, and their willingness to help one another. And as the stars appeared over the icy plains of Valira, the orphanage glowed softly, alive with energy, hope, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The sun rose slowly over Valira, painting the icy plains in soft gold and pink. The orphanage, once cold and silent, now glowed warmly from within. Crystals hummed gently, pipes carried energy smoothly, and dragons moved through the halls with confidence and joy. The transformation was complete. What had once been a frozen, quiet building was now alive, filled with light, warmth, and laughter. Kale walked through the main hall, observing the dragons as they explored the space freely. Zarin darted past him, sending small bursts of energy into the network just for fun, while Lyra guided the flow carefully, making sure it stayed balanced. Even the shy dragons who had once hidden in corners, now played together, experimenting with their energy and enjoying the gentle warmth that filled every corner. Thaler, the elder dragon, moved slowly through the hall, his gray scales shimmering in the golden light. He stopped to watch the young dragons, a rare smile spreading across his face. "It is remarkable," he said softly. "I have lived many years, seen generations of dragons come and go, and I have never imagined an orphanage like this. You have given them more than warmth. You have given them life." Kale shook his head. "I did not do it alone," he said. "The dragons themselves created this. I only guided them. They learned to trust each other, and to trust themselves. That is what made it work." Zarin ran up to Kale, his small claws tapping on the floor. "Kale? Look," he said, pointing to a group of young dragons who had linked their energy together. Golden light flowed from one to another, spreading warmth like a gentle river. "We can make it go anywhere." Lyra joined him, her violet wings shimmering. "And we can control it," she said proudly. "We can decide how much, where it goes, and how long it lasts. The orphanage feels like home now." Kale smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the crystals. He had seen many wonders in his life, but this was different. It was not just technology, it was trust, care, and collaboration. He knelt beside Zarin and Lyra. "You see? This is your achievement. You have learned to share your power, to work together, and to create something that lasts. That is the most important lesson." Thaler approached, lowering his head respectfully to Kale. "You have done more than I expected," he said. "You have helped dragons discover their own strength in ways I could not. You have changed their future." Kale nodded. "We have all changed it together," he said. The dragons continued to explore the orphanage, discovering new ways to use their energy. Some created small glowing patterns on the walls, turning the halls into works of art. Others practiced gentle pulses of warmth, learning how to control intensity and rhythm. Even the youngest dragons were beginning to experiment, their small claws and tiny flames adding to the network. The orphanage had become not just a home, but a place of learning, creativity, and joy. Zarin and Lyra often worked together, helping the other dragons understand their energy. Zarin's enthusiasm encouraged those who were timid, while Lyra's careful guidance kept everyone safe. The two young dragons became natural leaders, but they never demanded attention. They simply showed what was possible through patience, care, and teamwork. One evening, as the golden light of the crystals filled the hall, Kale gathered the dragons together. "Tonight we celebrate what you have accomplished," he said. "The orphanage is warm, safe, and alive because of you. You have learned to control your energy, work together, and care for one another. That is the future you are creating, your future." The young dragons chirped and moved closer, their scales glowing softly in the crystal light. Zarin's tail flicked excitedly. "It feels like we are part of something bigger," he said. Lyra nodded. "We are," she said. "We made this together." Thaler watched from a distance, feeling a deep sense of pride and hope. "Kale," he said, "you have shown us that humans and dragons can work together in ways we never imagined. Perhaps this is only the beginning." Kale smiled. "It is only the beginning," he agreed. "The future is yours. You have the power, the knowledge, and the courage to make it better. And I will always be here to help if you need guidance." As night fell over the icy plains, the orphanage glowed like a golden jewel against the dark world outside. The warmth was steady and strong, flowing through every hall, every nest, every crystal. Dragons slept peacefully, dreaming of flying through sunlit skies, playing with friends, and exploring the world beyond the frozen cliffs. The orphanage was no longer just a building, it was a home, a sanctuary, and a symbol of hope. Kale stood at the center of the main hall, watching the golden light pulse gently. He remembered the first day he had arrived, seeing dragons shivering in the cold, silent and hopeless. Now laughter and soft murmurs filled the halls. Dragons were healthy, strong, and full of life. They had learned to trust themselves, each other, and even humans. Zarin and Lyra approached him quietly. "Thank you, Kale," Zarin said. "We could not have done it without you." Kale shook his head. "No," he said softly. "You did it. I only showed you how. You believed in yourselves, and that made all the difference." Lyra smiled, her wings folding around her. "We will remember this," she said. "And we will keep the orphanage warm, safe, and happy. Always." Kale looked at the young dragons, then at Thaler, and felt a sense of peace he had never known. The orphanage had been transformed, not just by warmth, but by trust, learning, and hope. It was a place where dragons could grow, explore, and live fully. A place where the future was bright. Outside, the icy wind still blew across Valira, but inside, the orphanage was alive. Golden light glimmered through every hall, and warmth filled every nest. Dragons slept soundly, their hearts light and full of promise. Kale knew that challenges would come, But he also knew that the dragons were ready. They had learned to work together to control their energy and to care for each other. For the first time in the history of the orphanage, the future was no longer frozen. It was bright, warm, and full of possibilities. The dragons had a home and they had hope. They had learned that even in the coldest places, warmth could be created, and that together, anything was possible. And as Kale watched the golden glow fill the halls, he realized something important. The orphanage was no longer just his project. It belonged to the dragons, to their strength, their courage, and their heart. The future had been rewritten.